watching the News Hour.
Major surgery half done, a safe bet. Several analysis is being done of the Prime Minister's cabinet reshuffle. Joining us on the News Hour this evening, an eminent panel of journalists. We have Mr. Vinod Mehta, Editor-in-Chief of The Outlook, Mr. N. Ram, Editor-in-Chief of The Hindu, and Ms. Aarti Jairat, Senior Editor, Times of India, The Crest Edition. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the News Hour this evening. Let's begin with, I'm going to throw the question out. What do you feel? Surprises, disappointment? First, opening remarks from all three of you, beginning with you, Mr. Vinod Mehta, on what you feel of the Prime Minister's cabinet reshuffle.
Well, I always expected that Jairam Ramesh would be transferred, not because he has been a less than successful minister. Perhaps he's been too successful, and perhaps he has captured the imagination of the Indian public that development which tramples over environment, our forests, the land, the minerals, the rivers, that is not the kind of development we want. But I think the Prime Minister felt that Jairam Ramesh had tilted too much towards environment and not kept the development imperatives of the government intact. So I am not surprised that he has gone and that there is a new minister there. For me, the big disappointment in this is that this is a tired and fatigued government, and I would have thought that there was need to introduce some fresh faces, take some bold decisions, take some important ministries and give them to some new and young people. I don't see that happening anywhere, although there was some suggestion that it might happen. So that is the overall picture, is one of status quo, that this is business as usual. We might make a few changes here or there, but this is the same team and this is going to continue further. Whether there will be another reshuffle, I'm sure there will be before the next general election, but this reshuffle, the message from this reshuffle is that the old team may be battered, the old team may have a bad image, but it's going to go on and persevere. So in that sense, it shows that the recognition or the awareness that you needed a new team is not fully there in the UPA too.
Right. Now, Mr. Ram, do you agree with that assessment being made by Mr. Vinod Mehta? Because while on one hand he is talking about ministers like Jairam Ramesh, on the other hand you also have a crucial news point here in this cabinet reshuffle, the downfall of the DMK as an ally and its representation in the government.
Yes, I agree with Vinod that it's status quo. Not only that, the heavyweights in the cabinet have been left where they are, irrespective or regardless of their performance, good or bad. That's one. A minister who's, in my opinion, made a real mark, Jairam Ramesh, has been moved out. A sort of semi-surprise. We knew that there would be attempts to move him out, but we thought, since he had the strong backing of Sonia Gandhi, he would be retained, but of course he's been promoted, so to speak, and we wish him well. The big disappointment is about the infrastructure ministries in lackluster hands. Nothing has happened there, and water resources has been tossed like a political football as an additional charge. It's happened back and forth.
What about
the
DMK, sir?
I think it's...
Mr. Ram, what about DMK?
Yes. DMK, the ball is, it's in the DMK's court. They have to decide. It's clear that there's an invitation to fill the vacancies, at least one cabinet portfolio, and textiles presumably placed in the additional charge of Commerce Minister Anand Sharma is reserved for the DMK, but they have to decide soon. They are deeply aggrieved by what has happened, and it speaks to both drift and political opportunism on the part of the Congress that they are unable to make a call on this. So the more of the same, they want to continue with the alliance, and it's for the DMK to make the call right now. That I think is speaks
Mr.
to the
Ram,
drift and the yes.
Mr. Ram, I'm going to come back to the issue of allies and especially Trinamool Congress and Mamata Banerjee getting exactly what she wanted. But Ms. Jayarath, coming to you at this point, one of the crucial issues or questions that has been raised is about performance. Was this reshuffle based on performance? And also the tug that seems to be between the Congress party on the one hand and what it wanted from the reshuffle and the government on the other.
Well, I think, you know, neither the Congress party nor the government have got exactly what they wanted. Obviously, there's been a compromise between both sides, which is what has led to this, you know, status quo kind of situation. And as far as performance is concerned, you know, in these critical infrastructure ministries, there are several ministers who've been underperformers. And, you know, there should have been some change made, particularly if the government wants to now move ahead on projects that are lagging behind. There have been so many delays on, say, you know, road constructions, highway constructions, you know, transportation, ports, and so on. So, you know, these are issues on which we need to move ahead if India has to really get into the big league of nations. And there doesn't seem to be any attempt by the government to address this aggressively.
But Ms. Jayarath, do you feel that the government has tried to be, you know, play it too safe? Perhaps the Prime Minister, you know, in an attempt to consider all the considerations, has ended up playing too safe and not really taken those, you know, big ticket decisions.
Absolutely. And, you know, I understand that, you know, every cabinet formation or reshuffle has to be a balance between various compulsions. You have to keep in mind regional considerations, caste considerations, political considerations. But you know, this was a time when the government should have been bolder because it's facing a very severe crisis of image. And I think it needs to address that image problem very aggressively. So it should have actually put aside many of these considerations, taken people into confidence, worked jointly, the party and the government should have worked jointly to address this big crisis because, you know, they've got 3 more years to go and we can't have this state of drift continue like this.
It's quite interesting you say that because that's what Sushma Swaraj also tweeted about earlier in the day, saying that this reshuffle seems to have been done without much consideration. Mr. Mehta, I'd like to bring you in. Do you think that the government has managed to get rid of the tainted image that it has developed in the past 3-4 months over the several scams that have come out?
I don't think so. I don't think so. You see, the question you must ask is what was the purpose of this reshuffle? We were told that the previous reshuffle was going to be a small affair and the more drastic reshuffle would take place now. Now that hasn't happened. The government is at the midway stage of its career. I mean, it's 2.5 years and now we are in the run-up to the election. So in some sense, this was an ideal time to do something major, to have a major reshuffle, to tell the country, listen, we've got some new ministers, we've got some new faces, they are coming with new dynamism, they are going to be very energetic, and they are going to, that would have presented a new face and would have suggested that the old is, we are past, we are finished with the past. But this suggests that what we are saying, the Prime Minister saying to the country is that the old team is still good enough. I'll make a few changes here or there, but the old tried and tested team is good enough and I'm going to persevere with that. And that has come as a disappointment because people, the old team is now quite...
so essentially sir, what you're saying is this is nothing but juggling.
The old team
Ministers
has this aura of being part of UPA 2, which is full of scams and corruption.
So Mr. Mehta, what you're basically saying that this is nothing but an attempt at juggling ministers here and there. I mean, Salman Khurshid getting law.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see, if you're a good Prime Minister, they say, has to also be a good butcher. And he must at some point of time realize that, you know, I have to do something new. I have to go to the country elections are coming, I must tell them, listen, we may have made some mistakes in the past, we may have been derelict in and negligent in combating corruption and other things, but listen, I've got a new team and this is my new team and this team is going to tackle the problems of India in the 21st century. That message hasn't gone through.
Right, Mr. Ram, bringing you in, earlier you spoke about the DMK. Now that as an ally is clearly upset with the centre, but on the other hand, we have Mamata Banerjee who seems to have got exactly what she wanted. So clearly the centre is also sending out a political message. Would you agree with that?
No, the centre also wants the DMK support badly, notwithstanding all that's happened, because it's a numbers game that still waits to be played out, and they are in no position to dispense with the numbers the DMK has in the Lok Sabha. But coming to the larger point, I agree with Vinod that what you see is an unwillingness to take risk. Remember what happened in the third test? We didn't go for those runs. But there at least Dhoni has a team which is world #1, and we are nowhere like that. And UPA's political stock is declining, is clearly declining. You can see it all over the country. And it is not willing to take risks. It needs the spirit of Indira Gandhi. Whatever her shortcomings, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi knew how to take risks, and well-calculated risks at that. If you don't take risks here to get rid of this image of a tired old government which is not very clean, a government which is the most corrupt in the history of independent India, notwithstanding a Prime Minister with an image for personal financial probity, nothing has been done to alter that image.
But Mr. Ram, that means the Prime Minister has walked into a trap of coalition politics. Just because one ally is very powerful in the state of West Bengal, there's been a parivartan that has taken place in West Bengal, so they get to have the lion's share. There's another ally which is weak in its foot there in Tamil Nadu. That is why they will not get that sort of share. It's an open message and the Prime Minister seems to have given into it.
Yes, he was open about it, speaking about his coalition constraints, and also his theory of a world of uncertainty and all that. And I think you thrown in the towel before you started. So what's the surprise here?
It's quite ironic because last week we had this entire new media blitzkrieg that has been started by the Prime Minister's office. And Ms. Jairat, would you say, what does it say about the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office when one sees this kind of cabinet reshuffle that really doesn't answer any of the questions?
Well, I mean, clearly the Prime Minister lacks the kind of political authority that we expect the Prime Minister in our system to have. So it's not just compulsions of coalition, but compulsions of his own party as well. And, you know, he's had to bow to those too. So, you know, he hasn't been able to do, I think, what he would have liked to do. And, you know, I mean, he must be, you know, feeling that strain, but, you know, he really doesn't seem to have much option.
Now, Mr. Mehta, a lot of new people have been tried out in this particular cabinet reshuffle. You're not quite impressed with what has happened. But, you know, coming back to the point that you mentioned right in the beginning about Mr. Jairam Ramesh. Now, from one important portfolio, he has gone to another, considering the fact that rural development has many flagship programs on the basis of which the UPA government came back to power. There is Narega, there are various schemes. Does this mean that the controversial man has been put in another ministry where he can do a lot of, you know, difficult things for the government?
No, but you see, the interesting thing is that Jairam Ramesh has not been transferred because he was underperforming. Jairam Ramesh has been transferred because he was overperforming.
What if he overperforms in the new ministry?
No, he was overperforming. He has not been moved from environment to this new ministry because he was an underperformer. So now I just want to address this question that everybody is raising about coalition compulsions. You see, at the end of the day, of course there are coalition compulsions. But a Prime Minister has to make an assessment whether coalition assumptions, compulsions are more important, or for him to present a brand new face and win the next election is more important. And if he had told the coalition partners, he could have kept them happy. But if you take the 4 or 5 big ministries at the top, they are all in Congress hands. They are not in the hands of coalition partners. only food and railways, etc. So the big ministries are in the hand of the Congress.